At the foot of a mountain range in Ampatuan town stands a memorial. It is a memorial to one of the worst atrocities in Philippine history. 58 people were murdered here, 32 of them journalists, in one of the worst cases of election violence and violence against media men in the country. These days, silence has settled over the hilltop. Weeds have grown over the raw earth that had once been mass graves. It is the silence of the dead. This was a scene here 2 years ago. On November 23, 2009, gunmen allegedly belonging to one of the Philippines' most influential political families brought 58 people to this remote hilltop in Maguindanao province in the southern Philippines. The victims were political supporters of Esmael Mangudadatu, a local politician who had decided to run for governor of Maguindanao province against the Ampatuan clan, a powerful and influential family that has dominated the province for more than a decade. The victims were set to file the election papers of Mangudadatu at the provincial election office. With them were 32 journalists who came along to cover the event. The victims were executed one by one, allegedly by members of the Ampatuan clan's private army. Some of them were buried along with their crushed vehicles, others were left to lie under the sun. By the time police arrived in the scene, there was no one left to rescue. At first, authorities were unsure how many victims were involved. For 3 days, policemen kept unearthing more bodies and crushed vehicles, at times using a backhoe to dig up the remains. The final tally was 57 bodies. The body of the 58th victim was never found. One of those murdered was Gina de la Cruz, a tabloid reporter for Saksi News in General Santos City, some 92 miles south of Maguindanao province. It has been 2 years since the massacre, but Gina's murder still haunts her mother Nancy. Gina was a single mother of 5. When Gina was murdered, Nancy was left to support all 5 children. On a regular day, Nancy's house looks like a preschool. The youngest is Giovanna, 2 years old, Ralph Janus, 7, Georgisely, 10, Georgeline, 11, and Georgian, 17. Now a single mother to Ralph Gerald, 2 years old. Nancy's problem in caring for this extended family is that she is jobless and a widow.
Ano ba to? Matanda na ako. Bakit? Ngayon lang ito naranasan ko eh. Nahirapan kasi ako eh. Dapat sana magpahinga na ako para naman akong bagong may asawa.
Every day, Nancy wonders where she would get food to feed her instant family.
Minsan nagalugaw na lang kaming kain. Yung mga apo ko, 2 yung nagadidi ng gatas. Kung minsan, yung suam na lang. Kung minsan, Milo. Pag maubusan, gaiyak-iyak pa lang siya. May nahirapan.
More than once, Nancy had teetered on the brink of giving up, but nobody would take care of the children.
Wala na akong magawa. Alangan man, patayin ko yan lahat. Ang hirap na sa akin, wala na akong ipakain. Kailan pa yan matapos ang kaso namin? Parang malabo naman, eleksyon naman iniintindi nila.
Nancy's is only one of many families of victims who are still struggling with their new reality, 2 years after the Maguindanao massacre. Most of those killed were sole breadwinners in a region marked by grinding poverty. But more than that, these families continue to survive under a shadow of fear, the fear that those they accused could reach out and silence them at any time.
Lalong naghihirap ngayon ng kalagayan ng iba. Daw halos lahat dahil doon sa alam mo naman na hanggang sa ngayon wala pa ring stable na trabaho yung mga naiwan, lalo na yung mga nanay lang.
Like kay Nanay Nancy. So meron siyang mga apo niya maliliit pa. So pag nagmi-meeting nga kami, yun ang unang kinakumusta mga apo. Since kung ano yung natanggap, doon naman lang din kinukuha lahat-lahat. So maubos at maubos. Pag naubos, problema naman yung paano na naman isi-survive. Kasi hindi na nga rin siya makapaghanap ng pera. Kasi matanda na rin siya.
Minsan matakot kami. Baka ubusin kami lahat dito. Kung gabi na, sige, isira nyo ng gate kay baka puntahan tayo dito ng mga kalaban natin. Sirado nyo yan. O, mga bata, alis to kaagad sila. Takot din. Sabi ng mga apo ko, pinatay na nila si mami. Tayo patayin pa rin. Wala na tayong makain.
Assistance from all over the country poured in for the families immediately after the massacre. But as the massacre anniversary enters its second year, a new reality has set in. While the case continues its ponderous move in court, the lifeline of many of the families grows shorter. Nancy says she has been personally offered an out-of-court settlement of 25 million pesos by people claiming to represent the Ampatuan clan. In exchange for the money, Nancy would have to sign a blank sheet of paper. And there is one more catch. The emissaries are asking for a cut of 20%. Nancy says she has rejected the offered settlement for now, but there are days when she wonders if it was the right decision.
Oo, minsan may nag-aalok. Malapit ko na tanggapin pero natakot lang ako, baka ipapatay ako. Tapos wala nang sa mga anak apo ko. Wala nang mag-asikaso sa kanila.
Ano po inaalok sa inyo?
25 million.
Ang inaalok sa inyo?
Oo, totoo yan.
Sinabi ko nila kung
Oo.
galing?
Nahirapan ako kasi. Tapos wala pa kami tulong ibinigay. Marami akong apo. Matanda na ako. Yung tatlo, nagapasok pa yun. Yung dalawa, nagadidi. Kung minsan may tindahan ako, wala namang laman. Tapos kung may binta kami, bili ka agad ng hating kilong bigas.
Nancy is not the only one who has received an offer of settlement, and she is not the only one who has considered it seriously. Rick Cachuela heads the families of the media victims of the Maguindanao massacre. He says almost all the families of the victims had received offers for a settlement. And as the case enters its second year, it is becoming more difficult for the families to say no.
Yung halos na common na halaga na binabanggit nila yung mag-offer sila ng 25 million. Yung nakakasama lang doon sa sinasabi nilang offer kasi yung inuutusan nilang mag-offer sa pamilya ng ganun, nagkakaroon pa ata sila ng kita doon. Kung makakausap mo sila parang na sisilaw na rin sila, no? Pero andun pa rin yung pagbabakas, pagdadalawang isip. Kasi parang nananaig pa rin yung siguro yung alaala nila, yung nakikita nila yung kaawa-awang sitwasyon ng mga mahal namin sa buhay. Nananaig pa rin yung alaala na yun na talagang mapait yung pagkamatay nila. Strategy yun ng kalaban. Siyempre sinasamantala yung kalagayan ng bawat pamilya. Alam naman nila nanghihirap. At saka mayroon silang kapasidad na patagalin itong kaso na to.
Mahirap para sa amin na nag-aantay na hanggang ngayon umaasa na bumilis yung takbo ng kaso. Kasi hindi lang naman po iisang pamilya, iisang tao ang umaasa na mangyari yun, na makamit namin yung hustisya. Marami po. At sa panahong ito, nakakatakot pong isipin na baka yung ibang pamilya sa hirap ng buhay, baka dumating yung punto na ariglohan at papayag na lang sila. Yun na nga dahil hirap na eh.
The multiple murder case is now being heard by a special court in the Philippine National Police Maximum Security Compound in Taguig City. While hearings have been scheduled twice a week, the case has been bogged down by technicalities. After 21 months of hearing, the court is still in the bail proceedings. It is a case unprecedented in Philippine history, with the most number of victims and the most number of accused. Almost 200 people are accused of the murders, led by former Maguindanao Governor Andal Ampatuan Sr. and his sons Andal Jr. and Regional Governor Zaldi Ampatuan. Andal Ampatuan Sr. himself was only arraigned in June 2011, 19 months after the massacre. Regional Governor Zaldi Ampatuan has not even been arraigned yet. Attorney Prima Quinsayas is a private prosecutor of the Freedom Fund for Filipino Journalists. She says defense lawyers have succeeded in delaying the court processes to the anguish of the families of the victims. For one, defense lawyers have already filed 8 motions to demand that Judge Jocelyn Reyes inhibit herself from the case.
Actually, I feel it's a mockery of the whole judicial system, because it's obviously stretching the rules of court.
In June 2011, the hearings were again delayed after court interpreter Rolando Abo resigned, claiming he had been threatened by the Ampatuans.
As we get arguments or oppositions regarding the court interpreters, diba? I think that made it to mainstream media. And then we get all these issues about Kenny Dalandag taking the witness stand. That also made it to mainstream news. So all this sort of delayed the whole proceedings.
And we don't even know who the next witness will be. I mean, how fair would it be for you to be directed to cross-examine a person whose testimony or background you know nothing of?
But defense lawyer Siegfried Fortun says they are not the reason for the delays in court.
All we're saying is that if you want the matter, the proceedings expedited, we're not talking about merits, Ed. We're just talking about procedure. How quickly will you want the case finished? I answer you in this manner. I, as defense counsel, would like to conclude the proceedings in the shortest time possible, much shorter even than what the prosecution dreams to have it accomplished. And the reason for that is my clients are in jail. I want them out. So if there's anybody interested in getting them out quickly and getting trial over with, it would be me.
While everything that is presented during bail proceedings is considered part of the evidence in chief of the prosecution, when we reach the trial stage, no? We're still in the bail proceedings, and right now we're not hearing the bail of only one person. We're hearing the bail of about 34, diba? 34 people, and that kind of slows it down.
While families of the victims struggle to make ends meet, the Ampatuan family continues to wield power and influence over their former kingdom. The clan remains a major political player in the province. Proof of this came after the last local elections. In the 2010 elections, 10 Ampatuan family members accused of taking part in the massacre ran again for elective posts, even if these 10 were either in jail or in hiding. Those who ran include the Ampatuan patriarch and the Ampatuan Sr. and many of his children. Of the 10 Ampatuans who were implicated in the massacre, 8 won elective positions. Of the 8 who won, 3 of them ran while in jail, and the other 5 ran while in hiding from the law. The Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism and the Mindanao News Cooperative Mindanews counts at least 42 Ampatuans who won elective positions in the 2010 elections, from provincial board member to municipal councilor. 3 Ampatuans are now part of the Maguindanao Provincial Board, including Andal Ampatuan's son, Sajid Ampatuan, who is currently in jail. 8 Ampatuans won seats as mayors, all of them sons or grandsons of Andal Ampatuan Sr. In addition, 6 vice mayors and 25 municipal councilors who carry the Ampatuan surname also won in the elections. The new governor, Esmael Mangodadatu, who narrowly escaped being killed in the massacre, does not even hold office in the provincial capital in Sharif Agwak town. Sharif Agwak is, after all, still Ampatuan territory. The vice mayor is Anwar Ampatuan, son of Andal Sr., and the mayor is Zahara, Anwar Ampatuan's wife. 8 of the town's councilors are all Ampatuan clan members.
Halimbawa, sa Dato Unsay ka, almost all ng tao sa Dato Unsay, intact yun, na kanila pa. Ganun din dun sa Salibo, ganun din sa Hofer, and then dun sa Charipagwak. Na-maintain pa rin nila yon dahil maiksi pa naman yung panahon since nangyari yung massacre at saka nagkaulian at saka sa dami nilang pera, kaya pa nilang mag-contain ng fight sa political arena.
Political power is not the only ace that the Ampatuan clan still holds. In Sharif Agwak alone, the Ampatuan mansions stand out from the squalor around them. the most obvious reminder of the clan's immense wealth. The sprawling mansion of Zaldi Ampatuan sits on one side of the national highway, while the even bigger mansion of Andal Sr. towers from the other side. From across the tall concrete fence, one can see some of the buildings inside the compound. 5 minarets of Andal Ampatuan's personal mosque peek out from behind the wall. Meanwhile, concrete watchtowers stand guard over the compound. In the past year, the concrete wall has been raised several meters, but there is no hiding the magnificent homes of the Ampatuans. While we were taking this footage, men emerged from the mansions to take footage of us and our vehicle. But these are just a few of the known mansions of the Ampatuans, as revealed in an investigation by the PCIJ and the Mindanao News Cooperative, Mindanews. In Davao City alone, in what has been branded the former playground of the Ampatuan family, 39 houses are under the name of the Ampatuans. Of these 39, 35 houses are directly linked to Andal Ampatuan Sr., according to records found by Mindanews at the Davao Assessor's Office. The biggest on record is a mansion at the upscale Huna subdivision that covers an entire block. Parts of the mansion remain unfinished, but a wall has been built around the entire block. The mansion is said to be for Andal's first wife, by Laila Ampatuan. The estimated price for this lot, as recorded in the city building permit, is pegged at 28.2 million pesos. 19 more houses in Davao City are under the name of Andal Ampatuan Jr. Still, there are more properties spread throughout Mindanao Island and even in Luzon. There are more mansions in Sultan Kudarat Province, Cotabato City, and even in Dasmariñas Village in Makati, pegged at 50 million pesos, where the Ampatuans are neighbors of many foreign embassies and missions. All these belong to the family of a man who was just a small-town vice mayor 25 years ago. In an effort to justify the Ampatuan wealth, Andal Sr.'s eldest daughter, Rebecca, told newsmen in 2009 that the family owned vast tracts of land in Mindanao. The PCIJ asked Andal's defense counsel, Siegfried Fortun, about the persistent reports of the fabulous Ampatuan wealth.
I can't speak about that, because if I really knew about that, then I probably would have charged them more. But I never did, and that's probably the irony of it all. If I knew how powerful this family was, because I never knew them from a bar of soap.
Fortun says that as far as he knows, the Ampatuans were ordinary people who stand accused of an extraordinary crime.
When all of these occurred, I didn't know that they were this powerful or this rich. A lot of them subsequently told me that they have houses in Juna subdivision and this subdivision and all of those places in Lanang and in Nova Tierra and all of those places in Pampanga, in Davao, in Lanang. But I never really got to see them. So as far as I'm concerned, these people are just, what they present themselves to be, which, for all intents and purposes, are people who seem to have very regular, very ordinary desires and very ordinary casual aspirations. And I don't think I'm naive not to know that, that they have political savvy, but for all intents and purposes, they're ordinary people to me.
The extent of the Ampatuan wealth stands in stark contrast to the people they were supposed to serve. Maguindanao remains one of the 5 poorest provinces in the Philippines, with 5 out of every 6 people surviving on less than $1 a day. For this reason, the known mansions of the Ampatuans stick out like a sore thumb. Still, the Philippine government moves slowly to investigate and secure the Ampatuan assets. It was only in June 2011 that the Court of Appeals ordered the freezing of all the known Ampatuan assets. The order was based on a report by the Philippine Anti-Money Laundering Council that the Ampatuan clan members had wealth that far exceeded their income. A probe by the Commission on Audit also found that senior members of the Ampatuan clan may have mismanaged or misspent hundreds of billions of pesos in national government funds meant for Maguindanao province. To be sure, the national government had poured in billions of pesos over the years into Maguindanao, where Andal Sr. was governor, and the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, where Zaldi Ampatuan was regional governor. In 2009, the internal revenue allotment for Maguindanao alone was one of the highest in the country at 3.42 billion pesos. 1 billion for the provincial government, 1.7 billion for the municipal governments, and 600 million for the barangay or village level. But the money seems to have disappeared into a black hole.
Tapos sa Maguindanao is 3.5 billion according to the budget documents. Pero kung i-compare mo as to these social statistics, there are only 16 doctors, 24 nurses, that's public health level, how many midwives and so on. So, ang liit-liit na napupunta sa social development, kaya nagtatanong tayo kung saan napupunta yung napakalaking budget ng Maguindanao at saka ng ARMM.
The freeze order may have also come a little too late. The order was handed down a year and a half after senior members of the Ampatuan clan were arrested for the Maguindanao massacre, more than enough time for the clan to stash away its liquid assets. Moreover, the clan is well known in the region for shunning the banking system, preferring to deal instead with huge volumes of cold cash. The capital town of Sharifagwak, after all, does not even have a single bank. More than anything, this is what the families of the victims fear the most. That despite the atrocity that occurred in 2009, the Ampatuan clan continues to wield considerable economic and political clout. Aside from the struggle to survive from day to day, the families continue to live under the shadow of a family that can at any time reach out and touch them once again. Proof of this, they say, is the continued violence in the province. In the last 2 years, families of witnesses to the massacre have complained of harassment by unidentified gunmen.
Yung murder ni Dato Muhammad Isa Harisangki has yet to be filed. 2, yung illegal possession of firearms, I think that has been dismissed. The arson case, I have no news on that. The most upsetting for us was the dismissal of the frustrated murder case. The victim was Engineer Esmael Ebus. He's the brother of one of the accused, PO1 Rainier Ebus, whose discharge as state witness was actually sought by the prosecution. Then there was a frustrated murder case filed and it was dismissed. Never reached the courts. At the preliminary investigation level, it was dismissed. So yes, they still do have the clout. In all the adjunct cases or cases that arose from the massacre, they are not going anywhere.
In July 2011, a car bomb exploded beside the convoy of Maguindanao Governor Esmael Maguindanao. Maguindanao says this is a sign that until now, there is a bounty on his life. In the meantime, the Ampatuans appear to have shifted strategies. In July 2011, Zaldi Ampatuan agreed to be interviewed from his jail cell. And in those interviews, Zaldi claimed he was willing to testify against his father, Andal Sr., and other family members implicated in the massacre. In yet another bizarre twist, Zaldi also claimed he could prove that massive cheating happened in the 2004 elections to benefit his clan's political patron, former President Gloria Arroyo. In exchange for these offers, Zaldi said he wants to turn state witness. The implications are not lost on relatives of the victims. If Zaldi Ampatuan turns state witness in either the massacre or election case, this may mean he would no longer go to jail for either crime. This much was clearly a major concern in one meeting of the families of the victims last August.
Kukunin kaya siya ng WPP na mag-handle sa kanya.
Good question. Kung mag-state witness siya, no? Kukunin ba siya ng WPP? Paano siya kunin WPP? Kulong siya. Hindi ko lang alam. Siguro ang magandang sumagot niya si acting program director Menyes. Pero, basta
parang ganun siya siguro kasi paglabas na, hindi tayo yung buhay niya o magiging talaga yung security. So, wala siya mga tatakbuhan. So, mapasok siya siguro.
May secure din ba siya?
And magamit na niya yung mga allies na i-threat ba me or siyempre, may chance man na i-please siya ng government kasi maging issue man about sa itong national election fraud.
Una na nangyari yung massacre. Dapat unang resolbahin yun bago yung kaso ng eleksyon na yun. Hindi ko naman masasabing hindi dapat habulin yung mga tao na yun. Kasi sa totoo lang, may mga kasalanan sila eh. Pero yung sa amin kasi na pamilya, buhay yun eh. Buhay yung nawala sa amin. Hindi naman kapangyarihan, oposisyon o pera na pwede rin namang bababawi pagdating ng panahon, pagdating ng araw.
While the twists and turns of the massacre case continue to get more complex, for families of the victims, the issues and concerns are much simpler. The first is for justice to be swift and certain, But with justice still too far off in the horizon, the immediate issue is surviving, while at the same time ignoring an offer that would turn any of them into millionaires beyond their wildest dreams. More than the legal debates in court, here is where the real battles are being waged. In the cramped homes and lonely dinner tables, where families sit down and wonder how long they can still last.
Diyan, sabaw na lang ng balbakwa. Bili na lang kayo ng sabaw ng balbakwa para makakain kayo. Yun na lang kuminsan, mantika, toyo, sige. Kain na lang kayo dyan, mantika, toyo. Sige na lang pa. Walang baon ng mga bata. Ay, magtiis kayo, kaya wala na kayong mami.
It is an agonizing choice for the families, knowing that a settlement by one could lead to an avalanche of settlements that would weaken the case in court.
Usually an indirect and unseen consequence is that once private complainants start withdrawing from the case, the prosecutors kind of lose heart because they feel that if the private complainants, if the families themselves who are directly affected by the crime are no longer interested in fighting the battle, I mean, what more us? We are but public prosecutors doing our job, and it's just for us work, right? I've seen that several times when private complainants decide to stop and back out and say ayaw na namin. Yeah, the tendency is for the prosecutors to lose heart. For me, like, the reason I'm still in the case is because the families are still all very very firm and decisive in pursuing the case, no? I've got a feeling if all the families start dropping out one by one from the case, then the prosecutors just might, after all, they're humans, right? Tao lang sila eh. They just might lose heart.
Hindi rin naman natin masisisi yung ibang pamilya na mag-decide na tanggapin nila yung offer ng iba. Kasi nga sa hirap nga naman ng buhay, saka desisyon naman nila yon. Pero sa ganang akin na kapamilya na rin at kagrupo na rin ng iba, parang mali eh. Kasi pag mangyayari yun, sa tingin ko naman uusad yung kaso, pero tagilid eh. Parang hindi tama, may mali talaga.
The offers are usually in big amounts eh. So tempting, especially if we were talking about that one mother who no longer had rice at home, wala nang bigas. Imagine getting an offer of 20 million pesos. It's really tempting. So for them not to succumb, the support must be total. There must be continuing moral support, I guess financial support. But at some point, of course, you just cannot keep giving them fish, You'll just have to teach them how to fish. In that sense, support in trying to give them a constant source of livelihood.
Parang marami silang ginagawang emisaryo na susubukin kung ano nang baka pwede na no, na pwede nang bayaran ba para nang miatras yung reklamo.
How long will we be able to sustain this? Because the daily needs would come into play. Like we were talking just now during the briefing, they were worried about enrollment, they were worried about medical expenses of the kids, and these are parts of what? Reality. And the trial, which is now taking place in Quezon City, is fast becoming not part of the reality. It's sometimes I suspect for them it's surreal na, well, something is happening there, but we're here having to deal with the usual problem. One of the mothers who lost a daughter in the massacre, she was asking me just now if it's okay if she gets to bring home the leftovers. I said, sure. And then later, one of her friends, one of those who also lost a loved one in the massacre, said, you know what, they're out of rice. Those sort of things, wala na silang bigas. And when you think of the criminal proceedings or the trial that's ongoing, I worry that it will soon be not part of the reality.
No, sorry. I haven't heard anything of that sort. when the family consults with me and when we talk, which is a lot, particularly during hearing days, because we tell them what actually transpired. We talk about their own problems and their own situations, both here and in the province. And there has never been any talk about any of the witnesses or anyone who had gone against them, including the relatives. You know, for example, the Sakis are their relatives. Or any effort on their part to persuade, you know, or to bend testimony in their favor.
Many families say they would not rush to judgment if any of them agree to accept a settlement. It is a recognition that each decision is very personal, and in the end, each family needs to decide for itself. But for now, the families of the victims of the Maguindanao massacre say they will continue the fight, in honor of those who never came back home, and in the name of those who were left behind.
Kailangan naming maging malakas. Si nanay nga eh. Ang lakas nga ni nanay eh. Yung sa pamilya naman po, parati kami nagtatawagan yung mga issue ng mga offer na yan. Alam namin. Monitor namin bawat isa. Kaya kung may tatanggap man, malalaman din namin.
Maghintay na lang ako. Pag mayroon itulong sa amin, o yan, tanggapin ko.
Yun sanang gusto namin mangyari. Magkaroon kami ng sariling pondo na gusto namin magkaroon na parang livelihood as a group na kung sakaling magkaroon ng problema yung isa, may pagkukunan kami.
How do the families react? How should they react? I was just telling them just now, I said, if you ask me, I would rather you stay and fight. Okay? But I also said, as a lawyer, I am very much aware that it would be unfair for me to impose on you what I feel you should do, because I think it's still a very personal decision. I want to try to be upbeat and give them all the encouragement that I can give, but at the end of the meeting just now, I was telling them I'm not going to sugarcoat the reality. We have a long uphill fight ahead of us.
I just wish that if there is anything that will be given in terms of perception and leeway that had been given to those who claim to be aggrieved in any case, not necessarily this case, that the accused, who I think enjoy more rights than people claiming to be aggrieved, be given the same thing.
You know, the sad thing about the whole criminal proceedings or the criminal justice system in our country is that we really have a protracted or intergenerational justice system. And of course, being a private prosecutor, I have no choice but to trust in the system.
Hindi ko sinabing mahirap ako kasi nakakakain pa naman ako ng 3 beses sa isang araw. Pero compared to what they have, ganun lang siguro na meron ako eh. Hindi kang umabot sa ganun eh. So, ang hirap kalabanin ng mga tao talagang sobrang dami ng pera.
In this case, we're talking about the vast resources of the principal accused. Yes, definitely, it has a big impact. One, in the legal battle in court, the best legal services money can buy. Second, when it comes to the battle outside the court, that's when it becomes even, that's when the impact is even bigger, because you speak of offers of settlement, and then there are those threats that remain very real, especially on the part of the families of witnesses who have testified, are about to testify, or are still testifying. Diba? And then, we are not also dispelling possibilities of fellow prosecutors being bought off. Yeah. So, yes, definitely a big impact. Especially if I were to compare it with the other media killing cases that FFFJ helps in, the bigger the enemy is, quote unquote, the more uphill the struggle or the battle is.
Lumalakas lang yung loob ko eh. Every time na nakikita ko yung support ng media groups, especially dito sa atin na on the 23rd, nandiyan pa rin sila. Nakikita ko pa rin nagmamarcha, humihingi ng hustisya. Nakakalakas na loob, lalo sa amin mga pamilya, no? Na nakikita namin na yung mga taong hindi man lang namin kaano-ano, hindi man lang kakilala ng mga namatay, nandun pa rin. So, ito sasabihin ko ulit, wala kaming karapatang bumitaw. Hanggat nandyan sila, hanggat nandyan kayo, hanggat nandyan yung mga taong sumusuporta sa amin, hindi lang financial, emotional, psychological, hanggat nandyan yan, wala kaming karapatang bumitaw. Sa totoo lang, ang hirap eh. Yung mga nanay ngayon na talagang pag walang-wala ka, biglang nagkasakit yung anak mo. Pag walang-wala ka, biglang nangailangan sa school. Parang sabihin mo na lang, nasa na ba yun? Nandun yun. Pero, napag-usapan nga namin sa grupo na sinasabi talaga namin walang bibitaw. Inuulit-ulit ko parati sa kanila yung natutunan ko sa Korea. Kasama ng hustisya, talagang may pera yan. Pero pag inuna nyo yung pera, pwede nyo makuha yung pera, pero wala na kayong hustisya. Mamili, ito na lang yung sabi ko, mamili kayo. Hustisya kasama yung pera, o pera pero walang hustisya. Matagal ang laban na to, pero huwag tayong mawalan ng pag-asa, sabi ko sa kanila. Huwag tayong mawalan ng pag-asa. Dahil kailangan yung dalawa maging atin. At the end, tayo yung panalo. Kasi alam kong tayo ang mananalo.